Hi everybody, it's Dr. Freddie for this week's episode of Dr. Freddie Said So. And as you can see, I'm going to be running the Boston Marathon. This will be my 14th straight year. I'm trying to fill this one peg that's left here on my medal rack. But a lot of people ask me, why do you still run this race? For some people, it is the epic race in running. You have to qualify to get there. But once you've done it once, why do it again and again and again? Well, when I started running, a lot of you know I wasn't a runner. I actually had severe asthma as a child, and without chiropractic care through my childhood, I was severely sick and unable to participate in sports and really be an athlete. And so through chiropractic, it's enabled me to free my body of subluxations and interference that I didn't even realize as a child was preventing me from reaching my physical, mental, and even spiritual potential. And so as soon as I noticed that I was getting healthier, I started to run. I started a 5K, a 10K, it led to a half marathon, which is 21.1K, and the ultimate goal was a marathon. And I did my first marathon in 2004 in Ottawa, and I was 2 minutes off from qualifying for the Elite Boston Marathon, which is the Super Bowl of running. So I kept trying, and my next race in Toronto I was able to qualify. In my first race in Boston, I did a 3-hour and 14-minute marathon, which I was very happy with, just to even compete with some of the best runners in the world. But the ultimate goal for me was to break that 3-hour mark. It's a nice round number, and every runner likes to break their next round number. If they're a 4-hour runner or a 5-hour runner, a 3-hour, sub-3-hour runner, it's a very elite level to reach. And then being in my late 30s at the time, you know what, I wanted to do my best. And so I ran my next Boston. It was like 3 hours and 1 minute. I ran one, it was 3 hours and 4 seconds. If I had known it was that close, I would have ran a little bit faster. And although that could have been a disappointment, that 4 seconds actually inspired me for the next several years. Because I knew I was that close, I would just have to get there. But every race is different. 26 miles, 42 kilometers, a lot can happen. And those seconds that seem like only 4 seconds, can add up very easily. So I've done 301s, 302s, 303s. One year I was 302.26, the next year 302.27. That's how amazingly close it was. But I still hadn't broken my goal. So in my 9th year of running the Boston Marathon, I actually finished in 3 hours and 2 minutes. And right after I'd finished, this was in 2013, in April, is when the Boston Marathon bombing happened. And a lot of you know that I actually am in a hotel, which is right at the finish line. It's a Charles Mark Hotel. It's a very famous hotel. It's looking right over the finish. I have the best view of the finish line on the 4th floor. I literally look out my window, and I can see runners finishing the race. I have a big Canadian flag outside the finish line. And it had really changed my life that day, because we actually were in the room when the bomb went off, and some friends, my wife and I, we literally ran out of the room, and we had no clue what had happened at the time, but we knew something bad had happened. And for the next 24 hours, we obviously were without a place to sleep, because the hotel is now shut down, as well as all the businesses in that area. I didn't even have my wallet. We had no money. I didn't have my passport. And so we actually relied on the generosity of strangers for the next 24 hours. A fella who's a friend of a friend put us up in his place. He wasn't even there, and he said, you know what, have your friends stay at my place. There was a key underneath the mat, he said, just come and see it. And so we ended up staying at his place, but it was such an epic story to get there. We actually ended up walking through Cambridge to get away from the bombing initially. And we ended up walking right through the MIT campus, the university, which just 3 days after this is where the police officer was shot by the Boston Marathon bombers, and we literally walked right by that street. We'd gone into a 7-Eleven store to get some toothbrushes and some toiletries, and didn't realize that 3 days later from going in there, that convenience store very similar to that was also part of the Boston Marathon bombing, as the gentleman that was carjacked by the bombers escaped into this convenience store. So it just helped me realize just how precious life is and how certain things can just change on a dime. We had a fellow that actually had showered in our room, a stranger we had met that was actually on the airplane with us. He actually came up after the race to shower, and he said, "How do I get back to my hotel?" And my wife had told him just to go down to the bottom of our hotel in the lobby and turn right. And he left our room, and 2 minutes later is when the bomb went off. Well, we didn't know what happened to him for the next 24 hours, and then we saw on the Red Cross emergency website, we didn't even know his name other than it was Woody, and he had posted that he had left our hotel, and when he went to the bottom, something had told him instead of turning right to turn left. Well, it turns out if he had turned right, he would have been right where the bomb went off at that time. And so it just shows us how precious life is and how God watches over us. And sometimes when bad things happen, you know what, we can also turn it around. The next year was my 10th Boston Marathon. And for a while I wondered whether or not I should even go back. I was very emotional and even stressed over going back. I had tears running over my face going back that year. But I made a bracelet up that had the faces of the 4 victims of the Boston Marathon bombing, and I kept it on my wrist for the entire race. And my training wasn't that different physically, but my mindset was different. It wasn't for my own goal anymore, it was to honor others that had given up much more. And I ended up running that race. And normally in a race, in the last 10 kilometers, you'll start to fade and hit the wall, they say, and slow down. Well, this time, after finishing the famous Heartbreak Hill, the last 10 kilometers of the race were actually the best 10 kilometers I've ever run. And I ended up running faster than I've ever run in that race before. And as I went along the finish line, I looked up and it was 2 hours and 59 minutes and 35 seconds. And I actually prayed right before I crossed that line for enough time to stop and honor the victims that had died right at the finish line. I took that bracelet off and I actually put it right there and said a little prayer as I crossed the finish line. So it was an epic race. It actually was my 10th straight Boston Marathon. I actually broke my goal, my lifetime goal of breaking 3 hours in Boston. And more importantly, I was able to honor people that had given up much more than I did. Anytime things were tough, I just was thinking of people that had given up much more. So since then, I've still been going back to Boston. This will be my 14th one. I've been training well, keeping healthy, and I just have to keep my why strong as to why I am running and run for a bigger purpose in my life than just the physical race. And so my goal this year is to set another record and break my personal best, and I pray for your families and your goals, and hopefully you learn something from this story. It's not about running, it's about running the race of life, and that whenever you face a challenge and when things seem bleak and literally a bomb has gone off in your life, just look for the next step and what you can control and focus on getting there. Break it down step by step, and you'll look back and say, wow, it was a difficult time, but I was able to overcome it and accomplish my dreams. But think, if I had given up way back to the beginning at 3 hours and 4 seconds, I would never ever have the opportunity to race in 2014 and have that epic race. So I don't know what's coming up, but I'm looking forward to more. The only thing I can do is just show up, train hard, and see what God has in store. So I hope that message inspires you. You can ask any questions below. You can like us on Facebook, on YouTube. It's Chiropractic First Natural Health Group. Check out our website at chiropracticfirst.ca, and we look forward to seeing you at the next episode of Dr. Freddie Said So. And follow me in Boston. Follow it on the Boston Marathon on April 16th, coming up here in 2018. Have a blessed day.